I was working the breakfast shift at a hostel in Melbourne when an American backpacker, maybe 23, walked up to the counter holding a jar of Vegemite. She looked genuinely distressed. "Excuse me," she said. "I think this spread went bad. It smells like, I don't even know, motor oil? Should I throw it away?" I glanced at the jar. It was sealed, brand new, completely fine. "That's just Vegemite," I told her. "It's supposed to smell like that." She stared at me like I'd suggested eating garbage. People eat this on purpose? If you appreciate stories that reveal how small cultural moments expose massive perception gaps, this channel is where I break them down every week. Subscribing just makes sure you don't miss the next one. Before I could explain, her friend appeared with a Tim Tam in each hand. "These cookies are incredible," she announced. Did Australia invent these, or did they import them from England? I didn't have the heart to tell her Tim Tams are as Australian as it gets. That same week, a middle-aged American tourist at the tram stop asked me if Australians celebrate Christmas. Not if we celebrate it differently, if we celebrate it at all. He seemed shocked when I said yes. "But you're in the Southern Hemisphere," he said slowly, like I might not know where I lived. Doesn't that mess up the whole thing? Then there was the guy at the pharmacy who got genuinely upset when I couldn't sell him antibiotics without a prescription. "I have a sinus infection," he insisted. Back home, I just go to CVS and grab them off the shelf. When I explained that's not how it works anywhere, including America, he accused me of lying about American healthcare and, my personal favorite, the woman at the museum who asked if Australians had invented their own version of English, or if we just learned British English in school. She was dead serious. When I told her Australian English developed naturally over 2 centuries, she said, "Huh, I always thought it was just an accent you guys put on for tourists." But that was just the beginning. The Italian restaurant where I waited tables in Sydney attracted tourists like nowhere else. Most were lovely. Some were educational experiences. This American family of 4 came in on a Saturday night around 7. Dad was maybe 45, clearly exhausted from a day of sightseeing. Mom had that determined tourist smile. 2 teenagers who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. They sat down, and immediately the dad flagged me over. "Hey, mate," he said, using the word like he'd just learned it. "Do you guys have ranch dressing?" I explained we had olive oil, balsamic, the house vinaigrette. He looked confused. "No, like regular ranch." "For the pizza?" His wife jumped in. "We saw on TikTok that Australians put weird stuff on pizza. We just want normal toppings. Do you have pepperoni?" I showed them the menu. We had 4 types of salami, including a pepperoni-style option. The son pointed at the vegetarian pizza. "What's capsicum?" he asked suspiciously. "Bell pepper," I said. "Then why not just call it that?" His sister ordered the margarita, then spent 5 minutes asking where the tomato sauce was when it arrived. She'd expected American pizza sauce, not fresh tomatoes and basil. "This is like deconstructed," she said, poking at it. "Is this a fancy thing, or do all Australian pizzas come unfinished?" The kicker came at the end. Dad asked for the check, looked at it, then called me back over. "You forgot to add the tip line," he said, showing me the receipt. "We don't have tip lines," I explained. "The service is included in the price. Tipping isn't expected here." He stared at me for a long moment. "So, you get paid actual wages?" "Yes. And we just pay what the menu says?" "Correct." He looked at his wife like I'd just revealed a conspiracy. They left cash anyway, but I could tell their minds were blown. 2 weeks later, I was at a cafe in Newtown during my day off. An American woman, probably mid-30s, was arguing with the barista about coffee sizes. "I want a medium," she kept saying. "Just a medium coffee." The barista, patient as a saint, explained again. "We have piccolo, macchiato, flat white, cappuccino, latte. Which would you like?" "I don't know what any of those are," she said, getting flustered. "I just want a normal medium coffee with cream." "We have milk," the barista offered. Full cream, skim, oat, soy, almond. Not milk. Cream? Like Coffee Mate? The liquid stuff? The barista looked genuinely puzzled. We don't really use coffee creamer here, but I can do a flat white with extra milk. She ordered it, clearly unhappy. When it arrived in a ceramic cup, she asked where the lid was. For taking it to go, she explained. You ordered it for here, the barista said, gesturing to her table. No, I want it to go. I'm walking around. The confusion was mutual. She'd sat down, ordered at the table, never mentioned takeaway. But she seemed convinced this was obvious. Eventually, they sorted it out. But she left muttering about how complicated Australian coffee was. My friend who works at a Woolworths in Brisbane told me about an American couple who spent 20 minutes in the breakfast aisle looking for Pop-Tarts. When she told them we don't really stock those, the husband said, "What do Australian kids eat for breakfast then?" She listed off Wheat Bix, porridge, toast, cereal, fruit. Normal breakfast food? He looked skeptical. That seems like a lot of work for a Tuesday morning. His wife was stuck on the Tim Tams again. These are in the cookie aisle, she said. But that British lady at the hotel said they're Australian. Is she messing with us? My friend confirmed Tim Tams are absolutely Australian. The wife pulled out her phone and Googled it right there in the aisle. Oh my God, she said to her husband. Australia has its own snack food industry. I thought everything here came from imports. She genuinely seemed to believe Australia was just a big empty continent where people survived on whatever shipped in from other countries. The best food story came from my cousin who manages a pub in Tasmania. An American tourist ordered fish and chips, then got annoyed when it arrived with actual chips, not fries. These are like British chips, he complained. We were a British colony, my cousin said. That's where the term comes from. Yeah, but you're independent now. Why not update the menu? He wanted her to rename a century-old dish because it confused him personally. She offered him tomato sauce for the chips. He asked for ketchup. When she brought the tomato sauce, he insisted it wasn't the same thing. They went back and forth until another customer, an older Australian bloke, leaned over and said, "Mate, it's literally the same thing in a different bottle." The American tried both. Admitted they tasted identical. Still insisted calling it tomato sauce was deliberately confusing. I used to lead walking tours through Sydney's Rocks district. Educational stuff, colonial history, architecture, that sort of thing. You'd be amazed how many Americans asked if we were near the Opera House when we were standing directly in front of it. One guy, a business traveler type in his early 50s, asked me halfway through the tour if Australia had states. Not what they were called. If we had them at all. Yes, I said. New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, South Australia, Western Australia, Tasmania, Northern Territory, ACT. He counted on his fingers. 8? That's cute. We have 50. And we have 6 states plus 2 territories, in a country about the same size as yours, I replied. Different system. He looked doubtful, like I was making it up. Later, he asked if Sydney was the capital. When I said it was Canberra, he literally laughed. Come on, he said. Everyone knows Sydney is the capital. It's not. Canberra was purpose-built as a compromise between Sydney and Melbourne. Why would you need a compromise? Sydney is clearly the biggest city. I explained the rivalry, the political decision, the whole history. He nodded along, but I could tell he didn't believe me. At the end of the tour, he left a review saying I was knowledgeable, but got some facts wrong about Australian capitals. My mate, who works at the airport, saw an American woman at the information desk asking how to get to Bali from Sydney. Normal question. But when he explained it's a separate country requiring an international flight, she got defensive. I know it's international, she said. I know it's not part of Australia, obviously. I just thought maybe there was a train or something. A train to Indonesia? Or a ferry? Don't you guys have ferries to nearby places? He pulled up a map and showed her. Australia is an island continent. Indonesia is hundreds of miles of ocean away. She stared at the map like it was personally attacking her. "This doesn't make sense," she said. "I've seen maps where Australia and Asia look connected." "Maybe very old maps," he offered diplomatically. She left convinced Australian maps were wrong. A different time. An American student came through my tour group and asked if we used the metric system. I said yes. He asked why. "Doesn't that make it hard to communicate with Americans?" "We manage," I said. "But when you're measuring stuff, you have to convert everything." "No, we just use metric. Centimeters, meters, kilometers. Celsius for temperature." He looked horrified. "Celsius? How do you know if it's hot or cold?" "Same way you do. We just learned different numbers. 30 degrees Celsius is hot. 0 is freezing. Pretty straightforward." "That's so limiting, though. Fahrenheit has more range." I didn't have the energy to explain that temperature precision doesn't depend on which system you use. He spent the rest of the tour converting everything I said into imperial units and announcing the results to his friends. The weirdest geography moment came from a retiree couple in their late 60s at a museum in Adelaide. They were looking at an exhibit about Indigenous Australian history, which mentioned 65,000 years of continuous culture. The husband called over the museum guide. "This says 65,000 years, he said, pointing. "Is that a typo?" "No, sir, that's accurate. Indigenous Australians have the oldest continuous culture on Earth." The wife shook her head. "That can't be right. America was discovered in 1492. Australia had to be after that." The guide, bless her patience, explained that discovery means when Europeans arrived. Indigenous people were here tens of thousands of years before that. "But how?" the husband asked. "Where did they come from?" "Migration from Southeast Asia, via land bridges during ice ages." "During the Ice Age? Like the movie?" The guide confirmed yes, during actual ice ages, plural. The couple seemed genuinely shocked that Australia had human history before European colonization. They'd thought the continent was basically empty before Captain Cook showed up. "My sister works at a bank in Perth. An American expat came in to open an account, which is normal. What wasn't normal was his complete confusion about how Australian banking worked. Where's the routing number? He kept asking, looking at his new account details. We use BSB codes, my sister explained. Bank state branch. It's 6 digits. But I need the routing number for direct deposit. The BSB is what you need. It works the same way. He pulled out his phone and Googled Australian routing numbers right there at the desk. When the results confirmed BSB codes, he looked betrayed. Why would you change something that already works? We didn't change it, my sister said. This is how Australian banking has always worked. Different country, different system. But we're both English-speaking countries. That doesn't mean we use identical systems for everything. He eventually set up his account but kept muttering about how inconvenient it was that Australia didn't just adopt American banking standards, like we were being difficult on purpose. I had a similar experience at the post office in Cairns. An American tourist wanted to mail a package back home and couldn't understand why we measured postage by weight in grams, not ounces. How am I supposed to know how many grams this is? He asked, holding a small box. We'll weigh it for you, the clerk said. That's what the scale is for. But roughly. How many grams is a pound? About 454. He tried to do the math in his head, got frustrated, and asked if there was an easier way. The clerk weighed the box. 300 grams. The American stared at the number like it was written in code. Is that heavy? He asked finally. It's less than a pound, the clerk said. Oh, why didn't you just say that? Because we don't use pounds in Australia. But the clerk just smiled and processed the package. My friend, who's a pharmacist in Melbourne, had an American customer absolutely lose it over medication names. He came in with a prescription from his doctor back home, written in American brand names. She tried to find the Australian equivalents. "This is acetaminophen," she said, showing him a box. "That's paracetamol here. Same drug, different name." "How is that the same if it has a different name?" "It's the chemical name versus brand name. Paracetamol is what most of the world calls it." He wasn't having it. Insisted American medication was different, probably stronger. She showed him the chemical formula on both packages. Identical. He bought it, but clearly wasn't convinced. Then he asked for Advil. She showed him ibuprofen. Same deal, different name, same drug. He asked why Australia couldn't just use the normal names. "These are the normal names," she said. "Everywhere except America." "So America is the only country that does it right?" She didn't take the bait. The absolute wildest one came from a friend who's a personal trainer at a gym in Sydney. An American woman, maybe 30, joined for a month while visiting. First day, she asked what the gym's liability policy was. "If you get injured," she explained, "what's the process for suing?" My friend blinked. "Suing? You'd file a claim with your travel insurance if it was our equipment. But mostly we just make sure you don't get injured. But what if I do? Then we'd help you. Call an ambulance if needed. Incident report. Standard stuff. But the law